HighDesign provides a wide array of editing and transformation tools, mostly arranged in the main toolbar at the top margin of the drawing area. The buttons for a quick access to the transformation functions are contextually enabled when the conditions for the use of the tool are met, like number and type of selected items. Basic geometric transformations of the selection, on the other hand, are performed using the arrow tool and the object info panel in the sidebar. Now we will focus on these geometric transformations that represent the very fundamental operations required to handle drawn objects, from their selection to the change to their shape. The selection, or arrow tool, comes with two methods, arrow and polygonal selection, that let you select drawing objects by clicking directly on them or by defining a selection area. All the other selection functions and options are grouped in the Edit menu. Direct selection. To select directly an object, activate the arrow method and click on it with the arrow. Snap to objects must be active so that the arrow tool can see the object you're clicking. Rectangular selection. Activate the arrow method, click on a blank part of the screen, and move the pointer to define a rectangle, and click again, or release, to confirm. Objects with control points within the rectangle will be selected. If you move top to down, the selection will include all partially or fully enclosed objects, inclusive selection. If you move down to top, the selection will include only fully enclosed objects, exclusive selection. You can invert the selection mode at any time by holding down the Alt-Option key. Polygonal selection. Use this method to select objects by defining a polygonal region. Click to add a vertex to the selection region and continue till all the vertices of the polygonal area are defined. Double-click to end. Adding and removing objects. Hold down the Shift key while clicking to add items to the selection or remove already selected items. Click on a blank part of the screen to deselect all. If the option arrow tool clicks Extend Selection is active in Settings, clicking an unselected object will automatically add it to the selection. Selecting overlapping objects. When two or more items overlap, it can be difficult to select the right object. To get a smart selection, activate the arrow tool, hold the Control key, and click or right-click on the intersection to open a contextual menu with a list of all the objects at that location, from top to bottom. Choose the item of the list you actually wish to select. The arrow tool is essentially an all-purpose editing tool. Most of the tool-specific editing actions, such as resizing a line, moving a polygon, stretching a wall, or editing a text, can also be performed with the arrow tool. Only selected items can be modified by the arrow tool. Moving an object. How the function works changes depending on the type of the selected object. Objects that have a midpoint or a center, points, lines, rectangles and polygons, arcs, circles, ovals, symbols, images, text notes, tables, walls, columns, openings, viewports, and title blocks. Click the midpoint or the center when the cursor changes to a 4-arrow pointer and move the selection to the desired location. Click again to confirm. Hold down the Alt key while moving to duplicate the object. Objects that don't have a midpoint or a center, polylines, hatches and fills, curves, linear dimensions. Hold down the Command-CMD key on Mac or Control-Control on Windows to move any object, selected or unselected, by any of its vertices or by its outline. Move the object to the desired location and click again to confirm. Hold down the Alt key while moving to duplicate the object. Alternatively, use the Move function in the Edit toolbar. Resizing or stretching an object. The function applies to linear objects, objects that have a center, and objects that don't have a center. Linear objects, lines, linear dimensions, walls, openings. Click an endpoint or vertex. Move to lengthen or shorten the selection. Change its angle and click again to confirm. You can perform this action graphically by clicking on the new desired location of the endpoint, or numerically by entering the new length and angle values of the selection in the L and F fields of the input bar while moving the endpoint. Objects that have a center, rectangles and polygons, arcs, circles, ovals, symbols, images, text notes, tables, viewports, and title blocks, groups. These objects can be resized by graphically changing their geometry. Click on a vertex and move it to enlarge or reduce the size. Hold down the Shift key to keep the proportions, and click again to confirm. Click a midpoint and move to stretch or shrink the selection along one direction. With arcs, circles, and ovals, click the body of the object and move to resize the radius, and click to confirm. For arcs and circles only, enter the L value to make it numerically by changing their radius. Click an endpoint of an arc and move to change its angle. Objects that don't have a center, polylines, hatches, and fills, curves. Click a vertex and move to reposition it and change the shape. Click again to confirm. Click a midpoint of polylines to move the straight segment and consequently stretch the contiguous segments. Click to confirm. Clicking the outline of hatches and fills and curves will add a new vertex. Hovering the cursor on a vertex of a selected hatch, polyline, or curve opens the pop-up menu with the options to edit the vertex or change the outline. The Object Info panel provides easy access to coordinates and other geometric parameters, as well as textual information on selected objects. If no graphic object is selected, the Object Info panel provides all the information relating to the current sheet. This panel allows a deeper numerical control, adjusting the coordinates of the single vertices and the main geometrical parameters of the object. The Point section shows the coordinates of the current point or vertex of the selection. This point is highlighted in the drawing window and corresponds to a progressive number in the Object Info panel. Use the arrows to scroll through the points or vertices of the selection. Enter the new values in the coordinates fields to change the geometry. For polylines and Bezier curves, the Point section provides additional options. Polylines. Type of the segment next to the current vertex. Use the arrows on the point header to select the current vertex. Then define one of the following types: straight segment, convex arc, concave arc. Drag the convex slider to change the convexity of the current segment. This option converts a straight segment to an arc and vice versa. The radius value is automatically updated when using the convexity control. You can also set the radius value numerically. Use the close switch to close the polyline. The closing segment takes the same type as the last segment added. Bezier curves. Select the node of a Bezier path and change its coordinates and node type. The node types are straight. The node has no tangents and the curve is rendered as a straight line. Symmetric. The tangents extend by the same length and angle on both sides of the node. Asymmetric. The tangents are aligned at the same angle, but different length. Disconnected. The tangents are totally independent, and each control point has its own angle and length. The Geometry section allows the numerical editing of size and angle of the selection. Depending on the selected object, this section shows the fields that allow to review and edit: length, width, height, radius, diameter, start angle, end angle, global angle, rotation. This section also provides read-only information about the selected object. With some objects, the currently active point determines the direction of the transformation. As an example, when changing the length of a line, the current point is fixed and controls the lengthening or shortening of the line towards the other endpoint.